Signs of the Southland, Sunday, November 14th, 2021. Mr. Grant, we have a lot of signing day news to get to before we talk about the women's basketball game that we were just at, as well as some men's basketball action. Would you like to do the honors and start us off on a signing day recap?
Sure. Given that women's basketball is first up, let's leave them first up in the signing day talk. Nell and the gang signed 4 players. Guard Raven Boswell out of Austin, Texas. Let's see, we got Cara Dunn out of Kennesaw, Mount Perrin. For those familiar, another guard, Tony Morgan out of Tallahassee from the FSU Lab School, the one that we noted a couple weeks ago. And then we also have, I did not practice this name, Inez Nugoro Otreal.
Yep, think you got it.
Could have been a lot worse. Another guard, this one's out of Spain. Nell and the gang, like we've noted in the past, have recruited internationally very well. All of them look very solid. We have already spoken about Tony Morgan, but looking at Otreal, definitely good to see some experience playing 3-on-3 national team. That's great experience against good competition from Dunn. It's also worth noting that she's a multi-sport athlete, volleyball. All over the board. Number 1 small forward in Georgia. Number 2 overall 2022 from Georgia by Prep Girls Hoops. 49 and 61 in terms of national rankings. 16th at the position. Very, very, very solid. Raven Boswell, also a volleyball athlete as well.
I mean, it looks like even if you bundle together sort of the size that both of these players have, if I saw the post here correctly, and then also their cross-court ability, especially with volleyball, you're looking at what Tech wants to do. They want to be big on the boards and have that jumping and athletic ability so that they can play really solid, second chance offense.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that Raven Boswell, her father, Mark, 2-time Olympic high jumper for Canada. So for
genetic jumping ability, Mr. Grant.
I was going to say, if we're talking about recruiting for jumping, I don't even think you knew that was part of her whole dealio. But definitely great to see. Very well rounded for the class. A lot of size, a lot of raw athletic talent. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Let's move on to tennis. Actually, golf, because I didn't see what tab you had open. Golf.
Yes, looking at golf, inked 3 pair of top 100 players. Hiroshi Tai of Singapore by way of Windermere, Florida. Wow, just reading that straight off of Ramblin' Wreck. That's a long adventure. But then we've also got Aiden Tran from Fresno, California, as well as a local boy, Brady Rackley. Want to hear a fun fact about Hiroshi Tai?
Go for it.
Served a 2-year stint in the Singapore Navy following high school graduation and will enroll in January.
Interesting.
So we might see him in the spring.
Yeah, potentially. That's a normal sort of requirement for 18-year-olds in that part of Asia.
Yeah,
so I'm not surprised.
There's a kid from my freshman floor who had to interrupt his undergrad to do his time in the South Korean military. So
you just get drafted randomly.
But so he'll be a little bit older and he'll be able to start playing golf starting in January. So some of these guys are coming down the pipe a lot sooner than you'd think. Mm-hmm. Coach Hepler noted that this is one of the best classes they've ever signed. And given how this team has reloaded and the fact that Ty can step up right away, I think that's a pretty good sign, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is, let's look at these rankings here, number 40 on the junior golf scoreboard, number 11 in his class, and then just around the top 500 in the world amateur rankings. That's a really good ad for a team that is still sort of looking at replacing that top-level talent from Andy Ogletree, from Tyler Strafacci, those U.S. amateur champions. So even though they made the tournament, they made the final round of the tournament last year, you're still looking for that one guy or even that 2 guy behind Bartley Forrester.
Yeah, right? And Christo Lamprecht's up there too.
And Lamprecht as well.
But it's also worth noting that Ty has experienced top 15 at Asia Pacific Amateur Championship, a couple other tournaments, Southeastern Asian Games, third place finish in Florida in his like high school tournament. So you love to see the just that experience in terms of playing high level golf and being in pressure situations too.
And you also know he's conditioned. Because he's been in military training for 2 years.
Oh yeah. So if they got a sprint from hole to hole, maybe that'll be.
They're going to do it Mario Golf style.
True. Notes on others: Aiden Tran, number 22 in his class in the Golf Week Index.
They pulled him from Fresno.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think we got to the West so much? Maybe we're getting some good golfers.
Is that what Bruce tells kids' parents? Like, we're going to play out here, so you're going to have ample amount of time to see your kids. Yeah. We play out here all the time in
Palo Alto.
In Palo Alto and
Scottsdale.
In Scottsdale in tournaments sponsored by, like, Wyoming and not the schools that are nearby.
Georgia State sponsored the Maui Gym, I think.
Geography is completely meaningless.
Oh, yeah.
We're a globalist society now. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. Also, top 45 on the junior golf scoreboard, so we can compare apples to apples. Brady Rackley, the Lovett School local. Love to see that. Getting some boys from back home, too.
State and regional champion.
Yep. Again, that's playing well under pressure, and you're not going to have too much to worry about bringing in 3 folks as well, because you can only play 5 at a time. So having a wealth of experience in the guys that we have, as well as bringing in new folks. Honestly, the hardest spot, and Passner talks about this with basketball, in these sports with short rotations, short benches, but in golf, the most particular. Sometimes it's just hard to get everyone the minutes that they need. So hopefully we can figure that out between the team and the individual cards.
Absolutely. What's next on your list of tabs here?
Let's go to tennis.
Tennis. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so very familiar name in terms of the men's tennis class. Robert Bauer competed to play tennis at Tech. 5-star recruit, brother of former Tech men's tennis player Zummy Bauer, number 1 ranked player in Georgia, as high as 51 nationally. This is great to see. I mean, tennis is a little bit different. You might go, 5-star recruit. But tennis also has this thing called blue chip recruits, which are better than 5-star recruits. So it kind of feels like getting a football 4-star, but pivoting to women's tennis, we have Alejandra Cruz from Mexico. Great international experience, represented Mexico on the Mexican team for the Fed Cup. Couple international tournament titles. Great to see top 70 in the ITF Worldwide Juniors. Participated in the U.S. Open Juniors qualifying draw, number 2 under 18 recruit in Mexico. Again, ton of international experience and plans to major in industrial design. So,
which we also learned was Nerea Hermosa's major earlier today.
Which, you know what? If you want to be a varsity athlete and do ID, then you're stronger than me. Stronger than me.
Godspeed. What's next on the agenda?
Let's see. Do you want to talk baseball?
Let's go to the baseball diamond. Georgia Tech's latest recruiting ranking from perfectgame.org is number 11 in the nation with an average player rating or ranking. I'm not entirely sure which of those it is. It doesn't really say. Of 6.11, which I believe we counted out and was about ranked 16th overall there. That class includes 18 total commits, 1 in the top 100.
Yeah, in terms of the breakdown of the class, we have 3 pitchers, 3 outfielders, 2 infielders, and a catcher. Catcher being Lamar King out of Perry Hall, Maryland. Our infielders, Dimitri Diamant out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas.
Bishop Gorman! That's the Bryce Harper and what's his face school, isn't it?
I think so. Aren't they really good at football too?
No, that's the Bishop Gorman in Texas?
California? I don't know.
There's a lot of those.
Anyways, Las Vegas, Nevada, Bishop Gorman, solid program. Nicholas Sinisi from Sonoya, Georgia. He went to East Coweta.
And that's Sinisi, not Sinise, as I read it the first time. No relation to Gary.
Riley Stanford out of Gainesville. He's an outfielder, along with Parker Brosius from Lambert, Jace Blalock from Trinity Christian. So, familiar local types. And then we have our pitchers, Logan Bogue, something like that.
Bogue, my guy, Bogue.
I'll learn. eventually. Out of Habersham Central in Mount Airy, we have Noah Samole from Mason, Ohio. Ooh.
Midwest Pole.
I do like that. If that's the Mason, the William Mason School I'm thinking of, then that is a very good swim program that I don't know a lot about their baseball program, and we'll probably have to learn more about. Obviously, this is not very interesting content. Anyways, rounding that out with Cam Freeman from North Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. So, good pitching. We like to see pitching. I know that I only listed like 9 names there, and we said there were 18 commits, but this is what the signing day article has in terms of tech for what they're highlighting. If we cross-reference with Perfect Game, we will also note that there are a couple other folks as well. Luke Schmolk is a pitcher out of Mooresville. We have Brant Brogum from Buford. I don't know. This is great content.
This is a really good list. I saw one name on there that interests me. I think it was a Riley Stanford from Gainesville, Georgia. I am wondering. Well, he was on the other list. Click back to the other tab.
I'll go back to the other tab.
No, he was at the anyway, I'm wondering if he's related to Cameron Stanford.
Oh.
And I don't know how I would figure that out other than a nice, good Instagram stalking session. But I'm not going to advertise doing that.
Yeah. Also worth noting that we got somebody from your high school. So, wow.
It's been decades since I've been there. I don't know if caring about that is in my wheelhouse anymore. Moving on. Softball? Softball next?
Let's check softball. It's interesting. The list on the site had 3 players, so we'll focus on that. We got, oh goodness, I should know how to say this name. Shame on me. Paige Vukadinovich from Munster, Indiana. Close-ish to home for myself. Reese Hunter, Roswell, Georgia, from Roswell High. Jaden Gailey from Livonia, Georgia, Franklin County High School.
Noted rival of my alma mater, Roswell High School, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, you had Paige B off of Iowa Premier, which is a good program. Don't know much about the other 2, but...
there wasn't a lot, but they got... I mean, softball did a really good job of covering their athletes on Twitter. And so I would go check them out for more coverage. We're just providing a short summary.
Yes. Speaking of another program that provided a lot of good Instagram and Twitter coverage, that would be swimming and diving. Again, great, well-rounded class. But I think the talk of this class has to be the fact that we keep looting Turkey for basically all they've got.
There's a lot of jokes that I can make about that. I don't think any of them are appropriate for public distribution.
But yeah, Denise Ertan, freestyler out of Ankara. God, names are hard today.
It's the Turkish capital, my guy.
Yeah, anyways, number 7 ranked commit in the class. This is a Kaio Pumputis level get for the women, and that is awesome.
The Turkey to Atlanta pipeline continues to prosper. It continues to live, and it's fantastic.
And let's hit the hand more times. There you go.
Exciting content. I'm sure that totally didn't mess up the monitoring on the audio broadcast here.
Charles Perks, top 50, 51. So right around that 50 mark in his class for the free and fly out of Canton, Connecticut. Swam for West Hartford Aquatic Team in terms of, coming up. Let's see, there's another name that I wanted to highlight. Oh yes, Kendall Chun, Clemson. Thank you for shutting down your swimming program and allowing us to pilfer all the best recruits from South Carolina. That's about all I got on that class. But there's a lot of them. Go check out their social medias for more on that.
There's one name I want to highlight. If you scroll further up on the list, there's one guy from Brazil.
Oh, Joao Rodriguez?
Yeah, Joao Victor Caballero Rodriguez, who's a Breast and IM guy from Sao Paulo. That's another thing, right? That's another pipeline that Tech has worked on developing.
That sounds like they went, we need Kaio .2, let's go.
Also,
Breast and IM guy from Sao Paulo.
He's from Corinthians in Sao Paulo.
Mm-hmm.
That usually means something, but I have to check if Corinthians is still... If it's the same...
Thing.
I think... The Corinthians listed there is the same as the one that's the soccer club from Brazil. but I'm not entirely sure. I probably should have looked that up first.
That's cool.
There's also a commit for my alma mater, so that's also super cool. Let's move on further down the list. What do we have left?
Oh, I was going to say one more. Christopher Richardson out of the University Lab School. Another tech get from right under the nose of a state lab school, this time from LSU.
It's really weird how they keep doing that, but also I'm not gonna knock it.
Yeah, a couple more from up in the Midwest. We've had some good gets out of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin in the past. So good to see them back up in Westerville, Columbus, and then Germantown, Wisconsin. So,
do you want to try your hand at pronouncing the name of the commit from Germantown, Wisconsin, Mr. Grant?
Oh man, I'm
doing this on purpose because when I sent the commit alert to him, he immediately started crying about how hard this would be to pronounce.
Oh no, I did not. Sabina Mirzaglad, something like that. I'm too Polish to mess up that name, but yet here I am. So
freestyle and I ammer.
Yeah,
so get from Wisconsin.
Yep, good to see. I'm pretty pleased, honestly, across the board with whether that's golf, the tennis, the swimming, or the baseball. So.
I think we still have one more category.
What did we miss?
Cross country?
Oh, there was only one commit listed, which seems to not be right. But we do have Grace Marston out of Bradenton, Florida, for distance. So
I'm surprised that's not an IMG recruit.
Yeah, well, I guess there are more schools in the Bradenton, Sarasota area than just IMG.
Interesting. Anything else on the list that we have missed?
I mean, there's more names we could mention, but go ahead and check out the content on the social medias for those teams. But yeah, that's what we got based on RamblinWrec.com and Perfect Game and college swimming. So
cool. I honestly, that was like half of the stuff that we had on our shot sheet today. But we did end with talking a little bit about cross country recruits. So maybe we should start there in terms of recap of the week. Cross country was at the NCAA South Regionals. I think that was in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yep.
This past weekend, the men finished 13th. The women finished 9th. Nicole Fegans netted herself all South Region honors. When we were talking about this earlier, you mentioned that she just narrowly missed the cut for an auto bid to the full NCAA field. She should, I think you said, get an at-large bid. And also, it was Mary Catherine that's my bad. Mary Catherine Knott's first race of the season. So they finished a little bit better than expected with her return.
Yep. I would probably say both of these finishes are a little bit below what the team was expecting.
Oof. Really biffed that one.
Yeah,
on my part.
Not to completely pull the rug out from you from that. The women were, ranked team most of the year. Wanted probably to make it back to nationals, but hopefully Fegans at least gets to run an individual race next week or 2 weeks. I think it's next week.
I think it's next week. It's before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, haven't seen anything on the site though, so we will keep you posted on Twitter if we see anything with that.
Absolutely. Let's dribble over into men's basketball coverage. Yes, I am an excellent segue person. Men's basketball started their season at home versus Miami of Ohio. A very tight game in which they lost by 3 points. And then they came back a couple days later and really beat up on Stetson.
Yeah, they exercised some demons on that one. But I know I said last week that a 5-0 week was the expectation and anything else would be a disappointment. But 4-1, if there was one that was going to be a loss, this is probably the best one for it to have been. It's the opener of the year. Miami returned 99% of their minutes in production. Passner with just had a kid. Like, they're trying to figure out these new rotations, and the thing is too, he owned it in the post. Like, we sat through that post game.
Yeah, we listened to the post game, and he was very, like you were saying, he was very aware of the weaknesses of his team, and I don't think he really shied from it.
The weaknesses of his own coaching too.
And the weakness of his. I think he was very aware of what the team had to work on and where those deficiencies were. And even despite sort of the blame game is a little bit harsh to call it during the presser, but even despite that conversation about what the weaknesses were, this was a really close game. I think when he was talking about, a couple more shots go our way and this is a win, he's not wrong. I think there's a couple possessions near the end, because I was listening on the radio, there were a couple possessions near the end that were a little bit mismanaged, where I think they were trying to force the ball to Michael DeVoe and get something going, get something distance going. Maybe that was the wrong approach, and I think that's something that you'll see them work on, is in those tight situations, maybe get a little bit more refined. And obviously during the non-con season is where you want to get that worked out, because once you hit ACC time,
you better know.
You better have that tightened up, and we saw that last year, right? We saw that with an 8. They rode like an 8 game win streak, or like a 7-1 streak into the tournament, or into the conference tournament, and then into the NCAA tournament. So they clearly, Josh Pastner and his crew are clearly capable of making those adjustments.
Yes, and I will note that Miami did score, I believe, the last 9 points of the game. Don't quote me on the exact number.
They did score the last 2.
I was on call for work, so it was very tough to. It was very tough to not be able to watch the home opener, but I did go back and watch the highlights after when I was able to.
We thank you for your service.
Yeah, just the commitment to the podcast. But no, in terms of the Miami game, like I said, they returned most of their players. You said they were working through DeVoe at the end, which is true, and Pastner said it as much in the post-game presser that, Jose used to play 40 minutes, Moses used to play pretty close to 40 minutes. Maybe there's a world where you need to be, not playing players for 35, 38, 40 minutes and giving them some spells of rest down the end, so that way they're a little
Josh Pastner discovered the magic of a longer bench? Say it's not so.
He did say he may be playing with an 8 to 9 man bench this year, and it's what we were saying about when we were talking about when we mentioned golf and bringing in all these studs that, like, you only have 200 minutes to go around during a game, and you're going to want the ball in, like you got to play 5 players at one time, and Rodney Howard's getting better, and we know Jordan Usher and Michael DeVoe, what they're capable of. Bubba Parr, once he's back, whenever that is, what he's capable of. But, Coleman and King and Sturdivant and all these newer or less first man off the bench players of last year are going to need that time, not only just to play, but it's going to be figuring out who's the right man for the right situation, and also that load management balance.
Yeah, and I think these early season games are figuring out who you can trust, right? Figuring out who is capable of carrying that load. The operative part of load management is management.
Yeah.
You need to have players that are capable of shouldering the bulk of that. And this is where, like I said, those players sort of separate themselves out. We know what Michael DeVoe can do. We know what Jordan Usher can do. Let's see some of those younger kids separate themselves from the rest of the pack and join the more regular rotation. And even if they can't, I have no problem with having a longer bench and getting the same production that Jose Alvarado and Wright had from a longer bench and having more rotation.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for a lot of different things, and Pastner learning to adapt and his staff learning to adapt is something that they've admitted they have to do, and it's very refreshing to see a candid and direct post-game press conference. And quite frankly, again, if you're going to have to lose and learn the lessons, do it in the first game. If you got to struggle, you got to struggle, but it's...
If you got to bleed a while, you bleed a while.
It is now's the time to do it. The season's not over, and we have a couple of games coming up this week, so hopefully, the goal is always to go 2-0, so let's bounce back.
Absolutely. So those games that you mentioned, they will play tomorrow night versus Lamar, and then they will head up to Athens on Friday night. That's a 9 p.m. tip on the SEC Network. Let's talk about the other team that plays at McCamish Pavilion, Georgia Tech women's basketball, which capped off a 3-0 week today, just a few short hours ago, with a 13-point win over a scrappy Belmont team. They beat Central Michigan away 74-40. Kennesaw State at home to open the year 72-45, and then the aforementioned 13-point win over Belmont. I think this scoreline is misleading for the Belmont game because We were talking about this as we were walking back. Belmont is a good team. They gave Gonzaga last year, and that's women's basketball. Gonzaga, fair, but like they still gave
Still
number
top
5
team.
Yeah, number 5 Gonzaga a scare last year in the NCAA tournament. I think you said it was in the tournament, right?
I can't remember. Let me check.
Okay, well, you
Keep
look that up. I will vamp. This game was close for the most part. Tech had trouble putting the ball in the basket during the third quarter, and they did not tighten up on defense until basically the second half of the fourth quarter and really lock it down. And these are some of the things that we've seen in seasons past as well. And you have that Belmont score up.
It was Belmont 64, Gonzaga 59 in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so it's a scrappy team. Right.
Yeah, scrappy team has won in the past. They were obviously a tournament team last year out of the OVC. So,
a lot of Belmont fans in town. A lot of Belmont fans and a lot of rabid support. I mean, they got as close as 42-40, I think, at one point in the third quarter. Actually, the fourth quarter.
I think it was 45-43 again.
And it was loud. It was loud for Belmont when Tech was forced to take a timeout and sort of regroup. But that's sort of the key for Nell Fortner has been making those late game adjustments and finding ways to win, and she's been able to do that game over game over game. And this was another result that Tech just kind of had to grind out, right?
Yeah, I think in particular, we do want to point out that this game wasn't necessarily won in the same way that we saw past years or past editions of this Tech team win. Whether that's newcomers or just players who last year didn't see the court as much, whatever that winds up being. I'm trying to pull up the exact box score because I don't want to misquote this stat that I'm thinking of. But Elisabetta Bolani, 17 minutes off the bench, was 3 from 6 from the field, which doesn't sound all that overwhelming or anything like that. But her defense was great. Committed 1 foul, but drew 3, 7 points. That 3-pointer was kind of a heave of a throw, but it was a very necessary one.
It was a panic shot. It was a panic shot, and I think you could sort of tell by the, not necessarily the look on her face, but the way that she took it. It was just sort of, like you said, it was a heave, but it went in, and I think that was sort of where you saw the tables turn. Tech was like, okay, we were able to put the ball in the basket again. Now let's get back on defense. Let's lock down a little bit. Let's get a little bit more comfortable. And that's when space started to close for Belmont on their offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Strautmana, another worth pointing out, 17 points. She was 1 for 3 from 3. 35 minutes, or not, sorry, not...
Words.
Lorelai Lottinen had 17 points. It was 1 from 3. Dina Strautmana was 1 for 2 from 3, but that 3 also came at an important time. 18 minutes.
Flat curve on that 3.
Oh,
it was a line drive 3.
But the two of those being who I want to highlight in terms of new faces, Boulane being a freshman and Strautmana being a transfer.
Fifth-year transfer from Syracuse.
It is worth noting that she had a tremendous first game against Central Michigan as well. In terms of the rest of the squad, Lottinen led the way with 17, as noted. Kabai with 15. Loyal McQueen struggled a little bit from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, 1 for 7 from field goal range for 2 points. Nerea Hermosa reeled in 6, but played some great defense, 8 rebounds. Kubai, 1,000th point to seal the game, always good. And then Sarah Bates, an 0 for 4 from 3. So I think one of the takeaways from this game has to be being pretty cold from 3 and not really being able to space out the floor. But even then, still being able to work towards the middle and score when you needed to. But we've definitely seen more offensively efficient games, I'd say.
Yeah, Tech had a definite size advantage in this game.
Yep.
I don't think that... When Tech goes 4 bigs, it was hard for Belmont to match up. And I think that's when the tables sort of... Again, another adjustment where the table started to turn there. They had a lot of trouble from 3, like you said. But one of the recurring themes that I think we saw is Kubai was consistently asked to be at the top of the key a couple of times there, and even when you're playing with 2 or 3 bigs, you kind of expect those bigs to be on the post and not really floating that high on the field. Maybe it's just me and my like old basketball knowledge, but Kubai has never struck me as a 3-point shooter. And so asking her to sit up there is just kind of a waste of her talent. I mean, she dribble drives really well, and especially she's able to use her size really well on the offensive side of the ball. But why are you starting her at the? I mean, why is she floating that high up the court? Is basically my question.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and it could just be the realities of the lineup we were playing today. As noted, Kubai, Hermosa, McQueen, Love, Lodamai played the majority of the minutes, but were also spelled by Stratman, Bates, and Belani. So pretty short rotation. Only 8 folks. Still haven't seen Fletcher play.
Fletcher was in sweats on the sideline this game. I don't know about the others, but it's. I think we were talking about this when we were walking back. The thing with Tech starting out the last 2 seasons under Nell Fortner, has been they have struggled early without Fletcher there to sort of lead the attack. And I equated it to the deal with football where you have 2 options to lead your offense, that one of which has a low is more volatile, right? That's Loyal McQueen in the basketball case, who has a lower floor but a much higher ceiling, and compared to Kiera Fletcher, who has maybe a slightly lower ceiling in terms of top line talent, which you can argue, right? I think that's something that you can argue.
Maybe I'd say it's more polished rather than just not there.
Well,
she's just got 5 years of being super refined at this point.
Right. So what she makes up in sort of the talent delta, like the raw talent delta, she makes that up in
being super good at her job.
Yeah, in skill and refinement, and training and experience.
Yep.
And so when you're not able to put that person on the floor, your offense is a little bit disjointed. And we're seeing that again, right? We saw this exact same thing. They weren't able to score a lot of points starting the season last year as well. And they struggled today in the first 3 quarters, more or less, to put points on the board.
I just, I can't get over this. I noticed this not so much last year, but definitely in the CMU game and then today is I just get very similar vibes from watching Loyal McQueen as watching Todrick Jackson. Something that I find is exciting. But
exciting is one word, yes.
But also just, man, like it is transcendent sometimes just to watch like the process unfold. You know what I mean? Like it's I need to do something. I'm gonna make it happen. And eventually that's gonna start falling because this team, even though they weren't terribly offensively efficient today, is too talented and works way too hard for it not to come around.
And you saw that. And
they still won by 13. So
yeah, and none of those points were like garbage time points at all. Like Belmont was close with like 5 minutes left. Mm-hmm. Like this was a tight game. Again, the final score, the 13-point margin, is not indicative of how close this game was for wide stretches of it. I mean, Belmont was leading for most of the first quarter.
The entire first quarter. They led 15-11 at the first break.
Yeah, and they played really good man defense.
Yep.
To their credit, and I think it was a really good challenge, and I'm looking forward to what comes next for this team and how they build off of this performance, the Georgia Tech specifically, how they build off of maybe a disappointing statistical performance, but a gritty physical performance versus Belmont here.
Yep. And again, you may be wondering out there, hey, like, you guys are really focusing on this Belmont game. Was it just because the one you were at?
Yes.
One, yes, but also two, it was by far, I think, the game that we learned the most about this team this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the one that we could all actually watch and actually gain some insight from. Speaking of other games that we can gain some insight from, one of those will not be the game that Georgia Tech plays at ETSU later this week. There is no stream listed.
Hopefully they send Richard and Courtney up there to at least have a radio stream. Right?
Now I have to figure out where ETSU is. Johnson City, Tennessee. I don't know where that is in Tennessee, but hopefully
it's in Eastern Tennessee.
God damn it! I hope Richard and Courtney, like you said, are sent out there, and we can get some at least hear about what's going on, because there's certainly no TV stream.
Yeah.
And then Tech will host Auburn next weekend, next Sunday at 4 p.m. That'll be on the ACC network. That is the former coaching home of Nell Fortner back in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting matchup. I think that'll be a very cool matchup to watch, and like it's another test of the level of competition.
I am very sad that I'm going to be home for that game, but
get the ACC network on TV, fool.
I do. So
then what are you complaining about?
I'd like to go see it in person. I think it's going to be a good game. But 4 p.m. Sunday. It's worth noting 1,500 in attendance at McCamish.
It was a good crowd.
Today. Good crowd. We'll be eager to see them, get their due support for being really good. So one other random aside that I just had in terms of mental notes to mention: Tech did hold Belmont to 4 in the second quarter. That's pretty good. I don't have any way to tie that in, but it is worth noting. So,
you want to talk about another team that usually plays very good defense?
Is it volleyball?
It is volleyball. However, I said usually. Tech did drop a sweep to number 1 ranked Louisville this past week, but every set was close. The third set went to tiebreakers. I think it ended at 27-25 for Louisville. The first 2 sets ended in 21-25, both to Louisville. It was a tough loss. It's hard to say that we were high on the chances of success.
It would have been nice to win a set.
It would have been nice to win a set, and they did come close.
Yeah.
I think I would have been happy if they, made a dent and won a set. I am still pretty happy with their performance.
Yep.
Overall, keeping it close, at least giving Louisville a run for their money. I mean, even if they're going to sweep, at least it was close the entire stretch of the way.
I'll put it like this. Tech scored 25 points in a set against Louisville.
It just happened to be a set in which Louisville scored 27 points.
Yeah, exactly. Again, the 3 sets, 25-21, 25-21, 27-25. All of those are very close. Louisville is the only undefeated team in the country. They're the number 1 team in the country, and it's on the road on a Friday night.
Is there an attendance? Oh yeah, 1,100 in attendance. That's basically like Georgia Tech levels of attendance, if not just under that. So good crowd.
Tech only barely got out hit in all 3 sets. Good crowd. It's not at the Yum Center or anything like that. It's kind of like an O'Keefe equivalent for Louisville. For those of you who are curious, maybe you're not.
The L&N Federal Credit Union Center Arena.
I'm pretty sure that's just a building attached to their student union. Don't know. Don't quote.
No, it's sponsored by a credit union.
No, I'm pretty sure it's like attached to their student union.
It would be kind of crappy if they played in like just a random gym, like a practice gym for the basketball team. Or like a rec center gym. That would be pretty disrespectful of Louisville, but alas, Louisville is prone to do some of these things sometimes.
Let's see. I was going to say, I just drove past it, but
that looks nice. That looks exactly like O'Keefe.
look at all them banners, though, from the years of being in CUSA and Big East and stuff. They have more than a few, is how I.
They have podcasting is a visual medium. One entire long side of their court is filled with banners. And then they have what looks like a 2015 and a 2017 banner on the other side, but those are ACC banners.
I don't think they won the conference in 2017. That must be a NCAA appearance. Or no, did they win in 2017?
I don't know.
Huh? Maybe
I'd
they
have
did.
to pull it up.
I thought Pitt had won every.
Are you saying you put Pitt in 2017?
Yeah, it says conference champions 2017. Maybe I completely forgot about that.
Interesting. Interesting decision to sell naming rights for that arena. I wonder how much that deal cost, but that's a personal thought, I guess. It was a close game. I don't think either of us expected a victory. A set victory would have been nice, but top team in the nation, $2 million naming rights deal. That's a lot of money for a volleyball arena. This is the type of the part of the schedule where it gets very difficult, and it doesn't get easier, right?
Yep.
Number 3 Pitt. I think Pitt is number 3. I didn't actually double check that. Number 3 Pitt comes to Atlanta on Friday. That's a 4 p.m. tip on the ACC network. That's another tough game versus, despite, Tech beating Pitt earlier in the season, now you try to prove it again with in the home leg of that series.
This is completely left-hand turn here. Louisville's win percentage at LNN. Do you want to guess what it is?
At least 700.
It's 87%, an 870 win percentage. So yeah, even if they weren't the number one team in the country, it's very hard to go into that building and win. And also, that was the 4th highest attendance ever at L&N Arena.
Woof.
So yeah, that's tough.
I mean, it was a top 15 game.
Yeah. Of course, they're spoiled. They got a top 3 matchup a couple weeks ago. But Georgia Tech, the 4 p.m. against Pitt. Hopefully, I think it's a sellout, but
it is a sellout.
4 p.m.
It is officially a sellout.
Hopefully, people can make it there. I know I will be unable to use my tickets, but yeah,
it's gonna be packed.
4
it's gonna
p.m.
be rowdy.
ACC network. It's good to see them on the big network.
The big show on the big network. It'll be a good game. It'll be a competitive game, and I mean, Tech knows how to adjust to this Pitt team. They understand. Even if they won, like I said, even if they won in 5 sets, even if they won close, that still has some merit. Even if you go expected wins, yada yada yada, analytics, there's still some percentages, probabilities. There's still some merit to the idea of you have beaten this team before. How did you adjust to their adjustments? How did you know how they play? Let's recreate that performance and ride a rowdy home atmosphere and see what we can do with it. And I think that bodes well for Tech in this game.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that we'll probably get disrespected by the coaches because we lost. So don't look at anything that happens this week, RPI or coaches wise, and be like, meh. I mean, Georgia Tech played the best volleyball team on the planet right now, and almost won like a set. You can say all the sets, whatever. But yeah, they'll have the opportunity. They've played Pitt, even less good previous editions of this team have played Pitt very close. So whatever it is, I guess we just match up well against them. Maybe, who's to say? I'm by no means the expert. I just do my best to figure out this sport.
To finish us out on the volleyball thing, I want to see where Tech stands in the volleyball conference rankings.
We've got 3 losses, so we definitely are tough to get towards that top of the pile with Louisville having no conference losses and us having lost them twice.
Louisville 14-0 in conference, Pitt 13-2 in conference, Georgia Tech 12-3 in conference. So Pitt and Georgia Tech play head-to-head again. If Tech wins 13-3 versus 13-3 with a head-to-head advantage in 2 games, I think that should be enough to put Georgia Tech in second. I think Louisville is kind of untouchable at this point.
They don't hang banners for getting in second though, so.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Louisville will drop something late. Maybe it's not out of the question, but I think Tech, like we said, they were 9th in the last selection committee rankings. I don't really expect that to change a whole lot. I think they'll still be a top 16 team at worst. We'll just have to see where that lands moving forward.
Yeah, and honestly, that selection committee matters, and our RPI matters a lot more than the coaches poll anyways. So
coaches poll bad.
And honestly, hopefully we don't wind up 16th because that would mean we're facing Louisville in the Sweet 16 and push them off another week. I don't want to have to go back to LNN for a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. Anything else that you want to discuss?
Let's see. Volleyball. Miami and Florida State still looking good. Notre Dame, I believe, is at 6th in the conference, so they're coming up. That looks better for us. Georgia Tech has done what they've needed to in terms of this year and should not be held against them that they had to play Louisville and Pitt twice each this year. That's kind of unprecedented, really. That's a rough draw.
Rough draw.
Considering you play 4 teams twice and one of them is going to be Clemson, like Oh, we also do have a game remaining against Clemson and one against FSU. So that'll be on the road for FSU.
Clemson will bring down the RPI a good bit, huh?
Yeah, well, we've already played them, so hopefully not too bad. And also they're 12-15 overall, so not horrible.
Noted 3-12 in the conference, Clemson.
Yeah, well, good thing that they don't mention RPI from those conference records.
It's fine. Clemson just puts all their money into football.
They very much do.
Sure, getting a return on that investment this year.
Oh, I'm sure they're all delighted to talk about that, much as we are also delighted to talk about football at this fine podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Grant, for joining me today. Plug your stuff.
At FTRS blog, Twitter, from therumbleseat.com. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, things you want to tell us, from therumbleseat at gmail.com, or in the comments of any fine FTRS blog tweet or column. But otherwise, that's all I got.
That's all we got too, folks. We will see you next week.